Let us begin. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and part 2 of the Monogram 1/48 scale B-25J Mitchell bomber. Alright, today we actually start construction on this here kit, and as I said in my entry video, where I will hopefully remember to put a banner up above there so you can click if you want to go watch the intro video first. But the intro video deals with the actual kit, box contents, a little bit of history of the kit, very brief, and what materials, aftermarket, stuff like that I'll be using on it, and what my plan is, which is to do a summary type video series, whereupon I don't do step by step and get into the real detail and nitty gritty of the kit. I basically just hit the highlights, do some work, and then come back and talk about it. Now, if I run into anything that might pose questions for some builders, I might stop and talk in detail about that and let you know what's going on. Otherwise, it's just going to be a summary kind of thing, and I'll move along and just touch base every once in a while. So let's get the fuselage half number 99, which is the left or port side of the kit, and take a look and see what we need to do. Obviously, with all these parts that are going to be glued in place, I'm going to need to do a little bit of paint first. So according to the legend, the interior is E, which is olive green. Now, I'm not going to be too concerned about the interior, especially back here. I mean, I'm going to do a good job on it, but I'm not going to be super picky about color match or anything like that. I mean, I'm going to get close, but because it's all going to be buttoned up, you're not going to be able to see most of it. Most of my interior work that I will be paying attention to is going to be in the cockpit because, you know, there's a bit more glass. I'll also make sure that, you know, where you can see through these windows here, that the interior detail that can be seen will be adequate, because, you know, you can see a little bit in there. So I want to make sure that it does look somewhat good. So I think what I'm going to have to do first is I'm going to have to do some paint. So I need to figure out what color I want to do for the B-25 on the inside, and kind of see what parts need that color and try and do them all at once. So I'm going to start gathering all those parts that need to be painted, figure out which paint I want to use, and then I'll touch base again. So in looking at some of this stuff I'll actually be able to paint once it's assembled. Like this right here will make a nice sub-assembly. I can probably put the seats, the storage lockers and radio, as well as these ammo storage boxes. I can put those in place because the frames and the shelving kind of things, the shelves that need to be, that these parts would be on the real deal, those need to be green as well, and then I can hand paint the other colors. So I'm going to look and see what I can do for sub-assemblies to further to make this easy. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'll take a look at that. All right, here's a quick note on assembling the cockpit parts, the cockpit floor to these two bulkheads. The instructions are kind of a little bit vague, I guess. But if you look at it for a minute, it becomes apparent the way this thing's supposed to be set up. So this part here fits inside of that right there. Okay, so that goes there. This one fits right in those grooves there, like that. Okay, and then all that fits right here with that little notch fitting on that center rib right there. So one thing I am going to do to make it hopefully fit real snug and flush is sand away some of this angle on these parts due to the molding process. The parts are molded at a slight angle to help them pop out of the mold a lot better. But that's just a quick note there. Just things to look for. Just fit, test fit, and retest fit again. All right, here's the cockpit deck and the tunnel portion that leads from the back of the aircraft to the nose. That's all glued together and ready to go. Now, what I also did is I glued on some of, well, all of the extra parts that go inside the fuselage that need to be painted at the same time as everything else, including this little bulkhead thing here, which is where the rear machine gun area is. So I've got that. And then I also glued on the bomb bay doors. Now, I am not going to have the bomb bays open, so I glued them on, and you know, they fit okay, but some kits, they just do not design to be closed. So because of that, I've got a little bit of a gap going on between the bomb bay doors, but I'm going to attribute that to poor ground crew maintenance, so it's not lined up properly. Now, I could have done some different things to make it fit better, but not without a whole junk ton of work, and since it's going to be sitting like that, you're not going to see underneath it anyway. So cop out, maybe so. Cutting corners, again, maybe so. However, that's the way it's going to work. I am going to hit the edges here a little bit with a sanding stick to make sure it's all flush and smooth, at least here. You know, I don't want it to overhang much, and should be good. So I'm going to continue on putting stuff together and further prepping parts for paint. All right, as you can see, I've got the interior painted, and for that I used MRP Interior Green, World War II USA. Great paint. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting up some of these details, and also I'm going to try and figure out where some of this stuff goes, because this comes with 0 instructions. You've got this and the bag. That's it. So I need to look around here on the internet and see if I can eyeball some cockpit interior shots and see if I can match this stuff up. So yeah, so I'm gonna work on that a little bit. All right, with the instrument panel complete, I'm gonna go on to painting the interior detail of the inside the fuselage. So before I do that, a quick note on these Kits World decals. They look good, like the texture, the three-dimensional aspect of them, but they don't stick on their own. They seem like they're going to stick in place, and they don't. So I thought one of these was in place really good. I handled it, and I barely touched the edge, and it just completely popped loose. So you just need to use some super glue, PVA glue, whatever you want to use. Also, this instrument panel here, although it's recommended for pretty much most B-25 brand or kits, brands, Monogram, Revell, Accurate Miniatures, etc., the decal is much bigger than the actual instrument panel that's included. So what I did is I just got a piece of thin styrene and attached this to it and then glued it to the instrument panel. So just a quick note there on that. So I am going to continue working on this, and I'm going to start painting interior details. Okay, so I've done a wash on the inside, painted the details. I wasn't really super careful about it because, you know, it is going to be virtually invisible. But I did want to have some because you might be able to see a little bit through these larger windows. Whatever. But, so let me talk a little bit about this. Oh, I can't find the package. This Kits World set for the instrument panel and stuff. It says on the package that it works with, you know, a number of different B7 or B25s, including Revell, Monogram, HK is the other one, I think. Can't remember the brand name, but unfortunately that is not really. Yeah, there we go. Here we go. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Hasegawa, Monogram, Revell. That's the ones it recommends. Instrument panel's way too big to fit in the cockpit. So as you can see, I had to trim quite a bit off to get it to fit, and it's still not. I'm still gonna have to trim some more off. So, I mean, the lower parts will look great. This part up here, I mean, I've chopped off like half the dials, and I'm gonna have to cut off some more. So yeah, it looks, you know, once it's all together, it'll look fine, I think, you know, unless you like really scrutinize it. But you know, it's kind of underneath the what I'll call the dashboard, this part up here. It sets back a little bit, and it probably, unless you really get down there and really look, you're not going to see it. But nevertheless, it does not fit as advertised. So that's something to consider. So hopefully, you know, anybody that watches this, just take that into consideration if you decide you want to get an aftermarket instrument panel. So see, what I'm doing is I'm just using my nippers here, and I'm just trimming it in a curved fashion right across the top. And you know, I probably could have figured out a way to test fit and everything before I committed to it, but you know, I didn't. So just word from the not so wise. And it's still not quite fitting. And another thing to note too, there's a little groove right here that I would assume is for the instrument panel, but it's too far forward. Again, not a big deal, because you know, if you want, you can trim that little bit out, which is what I'm going to do. But that is what's going on so far. So I'm going to mark that so I can trim it out. But anyway, other than that, it's fine. You know, it's no big deal. I mean, I've cut off a bunch of the stuff, but once it's in there, all this down here is still going to be visible, and it'll look fine. So anyway, I'm going to continue working on that. I'm going to get these parts ready and get ready to close up this this fuselage. Okay, quick little update. So there you go. I got everything to fit nicely, and I did a really good job trimming that, actually. It fits the interior curve. You may not be able to see it pretty well. And like I said, when it's sitting there like this, you're not going to be able to see those upper dials that are cut in half. So no problem. Things are going smartly. All right, so before I can actually glue this together, I need to get the front landing gear done. And while I'm doing the front, I'm going to go ahead and do the rear as far as cleaning up and painting. But I also need to make sure that I paint these wheels and the brake lines I'm going to install. So I kind of need to do it all together. But the nice thing is, since these hub parts are separate, I only have to worry about gluing this one on to the landing gear to start, route my brake cables, brake lines, spray it all silver. I can spray these silver at the same time, you know, once they're cut off, obviously. But I can spray it all. Everything will be silver, same with the front wheel and landing gear. And I don't have to install the tires, so I can paint those separately, so I'm not going to have to do any masking. So I am going to cut these off. These are the aftermarket parts I mentioned earlier, which is CMK. Czech Masters kits, high quality cast product. These are resin cast wheels and tires. So all I have to do is get them cut off, get them painted. All right, let's take a look here. So I got the wheel parts cut off, sanded, and sprayed. And to spray those, I used SMS Super Silver. I also got the landing gear painted. It's going to need some washes and stuff like that, but I also got the initial brake lines installed. I'm gonna have to touch up a little bit there because you can still see the copper of the wire shining through just a little bit, but that's no big deal. I just wanted to mainly get it painted and ready to go. So those are done. The front landing gear is done and installed with the wheel hub in place, and as you can see, I have the fuselage glued together. I also started sanding it a little bit, but I stopped because it wasn't quite cured up as much as I wanted. So everything on the inside fit fine. One thing I didn't take into account is these bulkheads. Where are they? These bulkheads right here. When I glued those supports, those homemade tabs in order to keep these from sinking in, I didn't take into account that the bottom of these right here still have to fit in the bottom. So it was no big deal. I was able to, since you can't see that stuff anyway, I was able to trim it off, trim the bottom off so it cleared those tabs. But it would just be a matter of making sure when the tabs are glued into place that one leaves enough clearance for these bulkheads. So no big deal, wasn't that difficult. Now I've glued the tail gunner's position all together. The machine guns, I cut the barrels off because they were horrible because of the mold process. So what it looked like was this. Let me find something to write on. So, you know, the two halves of the mold have the half of the barrel. This is cross section. Well, through bad tooling or through a slip of the mold, they were more like this. It's a horrible illustration, but you get the idea. They weren't like this, they were more like this. So no matter how much I cleaned off, then you end up with a barrel that looks like this. So that dog wasn't gonna hunt. So I cut them off. I was going to glue the barrels, the aftermarket barrels in place, but I couldn't get them to stick. So what I'm going to do is, once I put the cover in place here, there's like a canvas, simulated canvas cover that goes in place right there. Then I'll be able to, if I don't lose the barrels, I'll be able to push them through that, and it'll give support while the glue dries. So no big deal. But I did want to replace them. So what I need to do is I need to let this cure really well, the cement, and then I can start sanding these seams all the way around. And they're going to take a little bit of work because, number one, I was quite liberal with the glue. So when I push it together, you know, kind of push some out. So hopefully I won't have to use any filler on any of this. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to, but I'm hoping not. But if I do, I do. No big deal. So anyway, I'm going to have to sand all this off and in order to get that ready. So the next part I can start working on is on the wings and the nacelles. But I'm not going to do that in this particular video. Since I am at the end, or I have got the fuselage finished, I'm going to call it the end right here for part 2 of the Monogram 1/48 scale B-25J. So if you enjoyed this, stay tuned. I'll be posting another video soon with further updates, working on the wings, landing gear, and so on, tail surfaces, all that, as we move along. So if you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button at the end. If you want to see part 1, I will put a in-screen clickable thingy at the end of the video, so you can click if you haven't seen part 1 yet. And yeah, so that's it. Part 2 done, in the can. So as always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and I'll see you all later.